All right, so welcome back. If you're new to this channel, then you'll probably realize that I had a very similar camera to this camera, the X-T30 Mark II, that I sold, I would say, a few months ago, and mainly because I couldn't really click with it. It just wasn't something I enjoyed using as much, and I used it at a bunch of different places, venues, countries, and it never really worked out for me. So I replaced it with the camera I'm shooting on right now, which is the XM5. The XM5, nice camera, no EVF. Had a hard time really even getting used to that. I actually bought an optical viewfinder for it, and I mean, yeah, it just didn't really, it doesn't work for me. I do love it as a video camera, which is one of the reasons why I'm using it right now versus my X-T3. But I once again ended up being back in the hunt for something that was super simple. I could carry with me all the time. I can actually put on my bike, so when I go out and mountain bike or I do gravel biking or backpacking or whatever, I'll just have this thing with me, and I'm not worrying about breaking it. The XM5, in my opinion, doesn't have the same build quality as this camera. I get that it's not built like the X-T3 or 4 or 5 because that's the pro bodies, but I was expecting, you know, the XM5 to be a little bit closer to this, but this is all metal, and of course the XM5 there's some plastic. I'm not saying it's not built well, but I think this is better for, you know, the things I plan on using it for. Plus it was a whole lot cheaper, so in the event that I do mess it up, I'm not worried about being out a whole heck of a lot. But getting back to this, it ended up showing up on MPB in well-used condition. I got it for about $351, and it was missing the thumb grip. It also, I believe these are actually aftermarket grips on the front, but this one was actually peeling off. So instead of using the double-sided tape again, which is what Fuji uses, and then I think when you buy the aftermarket kit, that's what it comes with, I actually use super glue to fix this, and I use super glue to fix this. And then I bought just a little half case, super cheap, off of Amazon, and yeah, I mean, it feels just right in my hand. And it's kind of funny because when I put it side by side with my X-T3, I really don't feel like size-wise, they don't seem that far off, but they really are. When you start to look at the thickness of these two cameras, I mean, that right there is kind of shows you how much bigger this camera is. And this is not a big camera. I would even say this is still one of my favorite cameras of all times. But I digress. So there's a couple of things about this camera that I didn't even know were a thing that I would like until I got it. One of them is just the simplicity of the camera. I'm used to having cameras that have a lot of things going on that I may not even use because I don't need it for the thing that I bought it for. I would say like the XM5, for instance. Yes, if it had an optical viewfinder, that would be awesome. It doesn't. But a lot of the video features and stuff I'm shooting in 4K right now. You know, it does better than that. I don't necessarily need that. And then there's also a lot of stuff that's in the menus and some of the newer Fujis. Same thing. If I'm using it for the purpose that I'm going to be using this camera for, I don't want all of that. What I do love about this camera is because it's older, the menu is extremely simple. I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot to choose from. Let me stop down this aperture for a moment so then I'm not blowing out the screen. Okay, so there we go. So, you know, you'll look in here and you'll notice there's only 5 selections for your shooting menu, and then when you drop down here to where the blue letters and numbers are, you know, that's your setup. There's only 3 menus, or 3 pages for that. Versus if you even go into the Fuji X-T3, you'll get a whole lot more. Don't get me wrong, I like this camera. I love both cameras. But yeah, depending on what I'm using it for, I may not necessarily need pages and pages of stuff to change or to tweak. So been pretty happy with that. The other thing I like about this menu that the other Fujis that I have don't do is if I am in the left-hand row where you have all the icons, I can scroll all the way down and I can jump between shooting and setup. But if for some reason I'm over here, and let's say I'm already in setup, but I want to go up to setup 1 and just stay in the setup menu, once I start scrolling up, instead of it jumping to the shooting menu, it'll go back down to 3. So it stays in that same shooting menu or in the setup menu. I didn't even know that was a thing. And honestly, the first time I started using it, it made sense to me. So I really like that. I've been shooting this camera primarily with the Viltrox pancake lens. So the 27 millimeter, let me open this aperture back up, sorry. Get some light in there. The Viltrox 28 millimeter 4.5 pancake lens, great lens, especially for the purpose that I'm using it for, because it's so tiny. It is so small, and I just leave it on the camera. It has a little cover for the lens. Sometimes I don't even like close that. I'll just put it in this. I got a little bag that I carry, but I don't worry about it because it's such a small hole. But yeah, 99 bucks for an autofocus lens that's this small. Granted, you got to fix aperture, but I think it does okay for what I use it for. The other thing that I have done with this camera is I've taken it with this lens and I put it in auto mode, which is something I never really did with the other camera. If you look at the top there, it has the auto switch. So if you flick that, and maybe you hand it to somebody, it puts it in automatic mode and it figures everything out for you. Well, I just figured I would just play around with it one day. I went out on a bright day, put it in auto mode, because I wanted to see how it would expose, or if it would expose properly for this lens, since it's a fixed aperture. I know it would only be able to change the shutter speed, and then because this lens doesn't necessarily have a great coating, it doesn't handle flares very well. So yeah, I just wanted to see what it would do. And frankly, I think it did okay. You can, make your own mind up about the pictures. But I've also used it, of course, in manual mode, because I usually shoot manual mode or shutter priority or aperture priority, which aperture priority for this lens doesn't really matter. But I definitely have used it in shutter priority. And I've also used it with recipes, Fujifilm bracketing. I'm starting to find so far that with recipes, I haven't found the one or the ones that I really enjoy. So I'm leaning more towards the film simulations or the RAWs. And the RAWs out of this camera look great. It's really crazy because I've gotten like some RAW pictures that I had even a hard time wanting to edit them. Like, I really like how they look, and I don't really understand that, because generally I'm not getting that from RAWs. I'm just getting something that's, I would say is not as contrasty as Blender, and then I can change it to my taste. But yeah, some of the RAWs that come from this camera, I don't get it, but I just really like them. But I'm still editing them. Let me see. I think that's probably about it. Me personally, I think it was a good buy. When I first set out to buy this type of camera for what I was going to use it for, I started out with the XE series. But if you look at the prices of the XE versus this camera, especially like the XE2, which has the same sensor, I'm going to scroll up here. I'm in MPB right now to see what they're going for. So yeah, the XE2 is actually going for $499 starting, and that's for a good model. However, like I said, this camera I paid $331 for a well-used model, and it's like I said, same sensor. And the other thing, because you didn't really have this either on the XM5, is I get my flip-up screen or flip-out screen back. Love this, and I've already used this for shooting at the hip. Everything about it I love. I tried to do that with the articulating screen and try to fiddle around and looking off to the side. I just, once again, just really wasn't for me. But like I said, still got the XM5, and I'll probably primarily be using it for this. Or if me and the kid will go out and shoot, and she wants to shoot in Fuji, I might say, hey, here, you can take one of these, and then you can have that as whatever it is you're gonna use for the day to shoot. So I also shot with the 75 millimeter Samyang that you've seen on this channel, and I actually think it did really good for that. A little bit bigger lens, but it's not a gigantic lens, so it was still pretty comfortable. So if you have any questions about this, I think it's a great buy. I've noticed that they're starting to go up as well, and plus this one was cheaper than they normally are. But just like any other Fuji, everything is kind of overpriced right now. But yeah, if you're looking for maybe even an alternative to like the Fuji half frame or one of these other newer Fujis that you just can't really get a hold of, but you just really want to have a Fuji, I would say look into this. I may have another review coming of another Fuji depending on how things go, and it's even cheaper than this model. But so far, this is the cheapest one I've gotten. So if you got any questions, feel free, click like, subscribe, and Agent Fit signing out.